The prostate is one of those organs that many men only think about once symptoms appear. It often begins gradually, changes in urinary urgency, getting up at night, a feeling of pressure, or a general decline in quality of life. These symptoms are frequently dismissed as normal signs of aging. From a medical perspective, however, this attitude is problematic. Many changes in the prostate begin long before clear symptoms become noticeable. The prostate reacts sensitively to inflammatory processes, hormonal changes, and overall vascular health. Chronic, low-grade inflammation plays a central role in this context. It often develops unnoticed and influences the tissue over many years. This is precisely where the importance of preventive approaches becomes clear. The goal is not to suppress symptoms, but to improve the conditions under which the prostate can remain stable in the long term. Tomatoes and olive oil are particularly interesting in this context. Both foods are everyday items, easily available and rarely associated with a targeted health effect on the prostate. Yet their components make this combination medically relevant. Tomatoes contain lycopene, a carotenoid with antioxidant properties. Lycopene has been studied for many years in connection with prostate health. It does not act hormonally and does not interfere with natural regulatory systems, but supports the protection of cells against oxidative stress. Olive oil complements this effect in a decisive way. High-quality, extra virgin olive oil contains monounsaturated fatty acids as well as polyphenol that can have inflammation-modulating effects. These substances not only support vascular health, but also influence inflammatory processes within tissues. In addition, olive oil improves the absorption of fat-soluble substances. Lycopene belongs precisely to this group. Only in combination with fat can it be efficiently absorbed and utilized by the body. The combination of tomatoes and olive oil, therefore, does not work together by chance. It is based on a physiological principle. Without sufficient fat intake, a large portion of the lycopene contained in tomatoes remains unused. With olive oil, however, bioavailability increases significantly. This effect is well documented and demonstrates how important not only individual foods are, but also how they are combined. A common mistake is underestimating these relationships. Many men consume tomatoes regularly or in isolation, yet expect a protective effect. When this effect does not occur, the idea is quickly abandoned. Prevention, however, does not follow a short-term schedule. The prostate responds slowly to changes. Cellular protection, regulation of inflammation, and tissue changes require time. Those who expect rapid effects will inevitably be disappointed. I am Dr. Angelina Stone. In my work, I repeatedly see men who only begin to address their prostate health when symptoms are already advanced. Yet the decisive influencing factors often lie years in the past. Diet, inflammatory status, and vascular function exert their effects over the long term. Symptoms are rarely the beginning, but usually the result of a longer process. Another important aspect is circulation. The prostate depends on a stable supply of oxygen and nutrients. When vascular function is impaired, the tissue also suffers. Olive oil supports vascular elasticity and can thus indirectly contribute to better supply of the prostate. Here again, it becomes clear that prostate health should not be viewed in isolation, but as part of a larger system. Tomatoes and olive oil are not a therapy and not a replacement for medical preventive examinations. They are also not a guarantee that no problems will occur. However, they can be part of a preventive approach aimed at reducing inflammatory processes, supporting cellular protection, and improving overall conditions. What matters is regularity and integration into a healthy lifestyle. Many men make the mistake of equating prevention with a noticeable effect. Yet a healthy prostate does not announce itself. It functions quietly. Protection does not manifest as a sensation, but as the absence of problems. This is precisely why prevention is often underestimated. It is subtle but effective. Stay with me. In the next section, I will explain why this combination shows no recognizable effect in many men and which typical mistakes undermine its potential benefits. This knowledge is essential for properly placing simple measures into context. If you are looking for medical content without myths, exaggerations, or false promises, subscribe to this channel. Knowledge is the foundation of every conscious decision, especially when it comes to long-term health. After men learn that tomatoes and olive oil may potentially contribute to protecting the prostate, a decisive question often arises: why do I not feel any clear effect from this? This question is understandable, but it is almost always based on false expectations. The most common mistake does not lie in the combination itself, but in the assumption that preventive processes must be immediately perceptible. This is exactly where the misunderstanding begins. The prostate is an organ that reacts slowly. Changes in tissue, inflammatory activity, or cellular protection occur gradually over long periods of time. Anyone who consumes tomatoes and olive oil for a few days or weeks and then forms a judgment is not evaluating a failure, but merely an insufficient time frame. Prevention does not follow a short-term schedule. It works quietly, continuously, and often unnoticed. Another common mistake is viewing individual foods in isolation. Tomatoes are consumed occasionally, olive oil is used sporadically, often in highly processed form or in quantities that are too small. At the same time, other burdening factors remain unchanged. Chronic inflammation, lack of physical activity, sleep deficits, or a highly processed diet continue to affect the prostate. In such an environment, no single measure can fully unfold its potential benefits. Quality also plays a central role. The health benefit of tomatoes does not depend solely on their presence, but on their ripeness, their processing, and their combination with fat. Highly processed tomato products with high sugar or salt content lose part of their positive properties. A similar situation applies to olive oil. Refined or heated oils contain significantly fewer polyphenol than high-quality, extra virgin olive oil. If this quality is not taken into account, the expected effect does not occur. Another factor is the lack of continuity. Many men regularly change their dietary approaches. Tomatoes today, another food tomorrow, a new supplement the day after. However, the body does not respond to variety, but to repetition. Only through long-term, consistent intake of certain substances do adaptations occur at the cellular level. Those who constantly switch or interrupt prevent this adaptation. From a medical perspective, it is also important to understand that tomatoes and olive oil do not mask symptoms. They do not act like medications that reduce pressure or relieve discomfort in the short term. Instead, they support regulatory processes in the background. Improved inflammatory balance or better cellular protection does not manifest immediately as a clearly perceptible sensation. This is precisely why they are often classified as ineffective. Another underestimated aspect is circulation. The prostate depends on a stable supply of oxygen and nutrients. When vascular function is impaired, prostate tissue also suffers. Olive oil can support vascular elasticity, but this effect unfolds only in the long term. Anyone who simultaneously fails to address risk factors such as smoking, lack of physical activity, or chronic stress neutralizes a large part of the potential benefit. Many men interpret the absence of a noticeable effect as proof that the approach fundamentally does not work. In reality, this absence often simply shows that prevention must not be confused with therapy. Preventive measures aim to stabilize processes, not to correct existing problems in the short term. Those who do not understand this distinction will inevitably be disappointed. I am Dr. Angelina Stone. In my work, I regularly see men who try natural approaches only when clear symptoms are already present. But precisely then, preventive effects are harder to perceive because the body is already reacting at a different level. The true value of tomatoes and olive oil lies in improving conditions early, not in eliminating acute symptoms. Another important factor is metabolism. Blood sugar fluctuations, excess body weight, and chronic inflammatory processes directly affect the prostate. Nutrition does not act selectively here, but systemically. Tomatoes and olive oil can have a supportive effect, but they are not a substitute for an overall anti-inflammatory lifestyle. When viewed in isolation, their effects remain limited. Many men underestimate how strongly long-term habits influence the prostate. Small daily decisions exert their effects over years. Prevention is not an event, but a process. Those who understand this process develop more realistic expectations and evaluate measures more thoughtfully. In the next section, I will explain what a sensible, long-term approach to protecting the prostate can look like in practice and what role simple, realistic habits play in it. This is where it is decided whether knowledge remains theoretical or actually leads to stable health. Stay with me. If you are looking for medical content without myths, exaggerations, or false promises, subscribe to this channel. Knowledge is the foundation of every conscious decision, especially when it comes to long-term prevention. In the end, many men face a fundamental question. If tomatoes and olive oil are not a quick solution and do not produce an immediately noticeable effect, what truly determines long-term protection of the prostate? The answer is less spectacular, but significantly more sustainable. Prostate health is not the result of individual measures, but the outcome of long-term processes that unfold over many years. The prostate responds sensitively to the body's internal environment. Inflammatory status, metabolism, hormonal balance, and vascular health continuously influence prostate tissue. Changes do not occur suddenly, but gradually. This is precisely why prevention is so difficult to grasp and at the same time so crucial. Those who only react once symptoms appear often intervene too late. Long-term protection begins long before the first complaints arise. A central factor is inflammatory balance. Chronic, low-grade inflammation acts like a constant stressor on prostate tissue. It alters cellular structures, impairs repair mechanisms, and promotes functional changes over time. Nutrition plays a key role here. Tomatoes provide antioxidant substances such as lycopene, which can help protect cells from oxidative stress. Olive oil supports this effect by supplying inflammation-modulating fatty acids and polyphenol. However, these effects only unfold when they can act regularly and over the long term. Another decisive aspect is circulation. The prostate depends on a stable supply of oxygen and nutrients. When vascular function is impaired, the tissue also suffers. Olive oil can support the elasticity of blood vessels and thus indirectly contribute to better supply. But here too, vascular adaptations require time. They respond to long-term habits, not to short-term impulses. Many men make the mistake of viewing individual foods in isolation. Tomatoes are eaten occasionally, olive oil is used irregularly, while other burdening factors remain unchanged. Lack of physical activity, chronic stress, sleep deficits, or a highly processed diet continue to have a negative effect on the prostate. In such an environment, even sensible measures cannot fully develop their potential impact. Long-term protection only arises when several factors are addressed simultaneously. A frequently underestimated point is consistency. The body responds to repetition. Cellular protection, regulation of inflammation, and metabolic adaptations arise through continuous stimuli. Those who constantly change or interrupt measures prevent this adaptation. Prevention is not a project with a defined beginning and end, but an ongoing process. Expectations also play a decisive role. Many men expect a clear signal, a noticeable feeling, or an immediate change. Yet a healthy prostate does not announce itself. Protection does not manifest as a sensation, but as the absence of problems. This is precisely why prevention is often underestimated or perceived as ineffective. It works quietly, in the background, and continuously. I am Dr. Angelina Stone. In my work, I repeatedly observe that men only begin to address their prostate health once complaints are already present. Yet the underlying causes often lie many years in the past. Long-term habits shape the biological state of the body. Those who understand this connection evaluate measures differently and develop more realistic expectations. Another important factor is metabolism. Blood sugar fluctuations, excess body weight, and chronic inflammatory processes have a direct impact on the prostate. Nutrition influences these processes systemically. Tomatoes and olive oil can provide supportive effects, but they do not replace an overall anti-inflammatory lifestyle. They're one building block, not a standalone solution. Long-term protection of the prostate arises through systemic thinking, moving away from the question, what helps immediately, toward what stabilizes my body over many years. This shift in perspective changes daily decisions. It promotes consistency instead of actionism and patience instead of short-term expectation. This is precisely where the key to sustainable health lies. The next step is to implement this understanding in everyday life. Small, realistic changes that are applied regularly have a greater effect than rare, radical measures. Prostate health is not a coincidence. It is the result of conscious decisions made over long periods of time. If you are looking for medical content without myths, exaggerations, or false promises, subscribe to this channel. Knowledge alone changes nothing, but it is the foundation of every conscious decision, especially when it comes to long-term prevention and quality of life.